Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Thunderstock Show, a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. This season is all about EOS and speaking with implementers about how they do two things: work on their business, not in their business, and how they can use the get it, want it, has capacity or the people analyzer to focus not just on who's on their team, but who's on their client roster. Today's special guest is Bill Stratton. Bill is an expert EOS implementer. He's been doing it for 7.5 years, but hey, who's counting? Before that, he ran on EOS to great extent as a CEO. Also, a Vistage peer of mine. Bill, pleasure to have you on again.
Great to be here, Ross. Thank you for having me.
So I have to ask, now I know your background, and for those that don't, you had been a part of some pretty cool growth stages of companies in the leadership role. You're a CEO, but I never asked you this question this way. When did you know that you GWC'd the seat for an implementer?
I knew I GWC'd the seat for Implementer in the second year of our implementation at Integrator, where I was CEO, and I just knew that I was ready to actually help other business owners and their leadership teams get what I got from Hank O'Donnell, who was our implementer at the time.
So your graduation, I guess, looked a little different.
I graduated actually leaving the company.
Yeah, not only did you say thanks for your service, because the typical, for those of you that aren't familiar with what I mean by graduation, it's usually what, 2.5 years roughly.
That's about right. 10 sessions or so.
And when you were ready, you were really ready. So what was the transition like? Was it on the IDS board in a session, or was it more like you left a room and you had to come and think about it and have a different conversation?
It was for me letting the owners know 4 months prior to me leaving that I'd be leaving and giving them enough time to find my replacement. And I strongly recommended one of my leadership team members to replace me because he was definitely capable of the job. One of the neat things about EOS, when we implemented EOS and Integrator, we built a very strong leadership team and we had a really good business plan going forward. We actually changed our business model somewhat to reflect the change in the market, which is was the best thing we ever did. And the owners did hire Cliff. His name's Cliff Warner. He's been the CEO of that company since September 2018. And has more than doubled the business since then.
So CEO, one of your last things was delegate and elevating one of the members on your team. But it's interesting talking to folks that are EOSIs that have been CEOs versus people that maybe worked in sales or operations, or maybe they were an owner, like an entrepreneur. You were pretty strong with process. You were pretty strong with being organized and having tough conversations with people. Would you call yourself like an integrator?
Yeah, I was both the visionary and the integrator because I did have to change some of the vision for the company, but definitely integrator. That's how I'm wired.
And it's usually, what is it, for every 4 visionaries, there's one integrator that's kind of in their DNA?
Yes, that's correct.
I think you told me that, so I'll take any credit.
Yeah. It's one integrator for every 4 visionaries. So if you're a visionary, you need an integrator, or you have an integrator and they're good, take care of them.
So what kind of perspective does, one, the self-awareness, knowing like that's who you are in your DNA, and two, when you talk to visionaries or leaders of companies, does it give you a kind of a different frame of reference when you have these conversations, being the integrator, being like the counterbalance to them?
Yes, it does. I work for some visionary owners. Actually, their vision was beyond some reality at times. So I had to bring them back down to earth and make sure that what was really important for the companies that we actually executed on. So yes, I totally get it. And I'm also very good at taking ideas and turning them to reality, but also filtering and making sure we set priorities and then getting them done. That's the key, is getting it done and moving to the next step.
Yeah, when everything's a priority, then nothing is a priority.
Correct.
So when it comes to before you start working with someone and you have let's say a prospect client sitting across the table, and you can tell they're a visionary, they're all over the place. They're talking very fast. They've got all these, great ideas. What are some of the specific tells or behavioral signs that tell you they really get it? Like the purpose of EOS, and that number one, they get it. But number two, that there might be some chemistry that you two would want to enjoy working together.
Well, often it's not just the visionary, but I'm in the room with the visionary and their leadership team.
Mm,
And so I look at the behavior of the entire team as it reflects with the visionary in place. And if the team is participating and actively participating and putting their opinions in, and if the visionary is sitting back and listening, to me, that's a good fit. If the
mm.
visionary is doing all the talking and everyone else is just quiet, or they're looking to him for cues or she for cues, then it might not be the journey might be a little more difficult.
Interesting. So when there's active participation from everyone versus like an obvious hierarchy, you can tell that there's a foundation of trust that they can be open and honest, and
Yes.
then it would make it easier for you to, go in and do your thing.
Yes.
Interesting. What are some signs that maybe they have the pain, maybe they're aware of EOS, they know what it can do, they've maybe had a friend that's done it, but that is just not a great fit. Like the anti ideal. Not saying they're bad, right? But maybe for somebody else, they'd be better for somebody else.
Number one for me, a deal killer for me is you have a visionary who wants to move faster than the process allows. That will kill it. I actually had that experience in 2020 where the visionary was actually rolling EOS out before we had gotten to vision building day 2 prematurely. He was go, 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 and I wasn't fast enough. The system wasn't fast enough, and it we ended the relationship after vision building day 2. It just wasn't working. And you know what's interesting is their new integrator who brought me on board 3 months later, he left. Same reason.
So not only do we have to, this is such an interesting frame, Bill, because we think about the seat of the client, but if the client wants to take the seat of the implementer, that doesn't work.
No,
There can only be one person per seat, and if they
correct.
try to take your seat, that's it sounds obvious, but it's funny because I've never heard that or thought of that before.
Not
Yeah.
my seat. I said the integrator couldn't take it anymore from the
Well,
visionary.
I just inferred that if they're trying to go faster than what the process that you're
Yep.
doing allows, like, well, who's implementing this here?
Yeah,
Is it
that's
Phil
exactly
or
right.
is it visionary?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Now you've shared something with me, Bill, that has stuck to my long term memory bank,
Okay.
which was looking at the framework of get it, want it, has capacity. Get it is what's in your DNA. Who are you at like your cellular level? Want it is like what are your desires, ambitions? Like what do you want? It's kind of self-explanatory, but there's the degree of will associated. And has capacity is a bit more complicated, whether that's emotional intelligence, experience, time, energy, health, a bunch of other
Stamina.
things,
Correct.
stamina, all kinds of things have capacity. Like, I'm 5'8". I don't think I have capacity to play in the NBA. I could be a foot taller, right? Something like that, as an example.
Yeah.
But you had shared of ways to assess GWC, and I'm going to do my best to remember, but get it would be a Colby. Want it could be like a predictive index or Myers Briggs, some other
That's correct.
personality. And capacity could either be like a Wonderlic, IQ test, something like that.
Yep. If you look at the 3 parts of the mind. Yeah. If you compare Colby, 3 parts of the mind with GW.
Okay, so I got a check on my homework because I
Yep, you
remembered the
got it. You
presentation.
remembered it.
Now, if you could think of any assessments or exercises with, who would obtain for a client of yours, right? For the role of that, like what are some of the things that you look for when you're assessing? Because it's a two-way street. It's a back and forth interview.
You mean bring on a new member of the team?
Well, that or a client, right?
Oh, okay. I look at if they're in enough pain that want to work with me. I look make sure there's a good fit that we have good chemistry among ourselves, myself, the visionary founder, owner, and his team, and if they're willing to do the work, because it is work, and take it seriously. And the clients that take it seriously and want to do the work are the most successful. And I've seen it over and over and over again.
So to assess that, it could be responsiveness, it could be commitment, not maybe we'll do it next quarter, or thanks for the talk today, Bill. We're going to go and talk to our spouses and first cousins and next door neighbors, right? A lot of it's commitment, responsiveness in
Correct.
the process.
At the beginning, yeah. And then as they're on the journey, as they're on the EOS, we call it the EOS process, which is the implementation journey, I can tell, they get the rocks, their first set of rocks are due on vision building day 2. If they get 80% of those rocks done in the first try, that shows real commitment because most of the time it's 50%. And if they're in their second or third quarterly and they're only getting 50% of the rocks done, that's an issue. That tells
Mm,
me they're not doing the work. If their scorecard is all red, it tells me they're not doing the work, and then I'll go back and challenge them. Often, If the rocks are 50% complete after the second or third quarterly, I'll look right at the integrator and say, okay, you aren't getting all the rocks done. What's going on here? And sometimes, and it's happened, sometimes the integrator does a GWC.
So you look at trend analysis, right?
Yes,
Because if they start at 50 and they get to 80, two thumbs up. If they start at 80 and go to 50, it's like, what's going on here?
that's correct.
That's such a good, I love the frame from Dan Sullivan, The Gap and the Gain, where we're so focused on the future and like where are we at compared to where we want to be. But really a good assessment for whether it's fit with clients or your team, or if you're on track, off track is okay. How far we came, right?
Correct.
So I'm gonna flip that to you. 7.5 years, expert EOS implementer. You've done a bunch. Go ahead.
Certified EOS Implementer.
All right, Alex, my podcast editor, please edit this part out and make me
Certified.
certified. All right, we're certified here. But 7.5 years, you've done tons of days. What is something that when you're looking at your own business, right? Because you have people that help you out, you have people that help you with marketing and accounting and admin, things like that, and you do your rocks and your yearly planning. Like, what is working on your business on this year versus like the early stages, and how is it different? How have you grown?
I've outsourced a lot of the work so that most of what I do best, upper left-hand quadrant for the delegate and elevate tool, where it says, I love being in the session room with my clients and I like doing biz dev work. I like networking and getting to know folks out in the field. So that's where I want to spend my time. So the other part, which is running a business, a practice, I've outsourced my accounting, my payroll, my bookkeeping, and my tax accounting for my business to a local CPA firm. All I do is write checks and they send me my K1 at the end of March. It's great. It's easy. I don't even touch QuickBooks. Okay. That's number one. I outsource a lot of the marketing work. I've got a woman who's a storyteller who helped me redo my microsite, which we had to redo 6 months ago. She did a beautiful job with it. I've got 4 brand new testimonial videos from 4 local clients that are just wonderful because she had more of a talent to do that than I did. And I've outsourced my LinkedIn posts to another marketing firm.
So all things that are important to do, but just not for Bill to personally do, where in the beginning you might have thought,
I
oh, I
did it
need to
all
do it
myself.
all.
Yep. Yeah.
Gosh, talk about letting go of the vine.
Yeah,
That's good.
it gets back to, you mentioned Dan Sullivan and Gap in the Gain, but also think about Dan Sullivan, who, not how. Who's my
Yeah.
who? And so I've built up some who's. The other thing, I have a great executive assistant. Her name's April, and I've worked with her for 7 years, and she keeps me on track.
So that leads me to one of the questions when it comes to working on your business, who, not how. I think a lot of people, especially in my world with marketing, people are really focused on how many site visitors are we getting, or how many views did this testimonial video get, or what's our SEO ranking score. And like, sure, that stuff like sort of kind of matters. People aren't seeing it, and you're just getting bots or random eyeballs from Turkey and Australia. People are just not necessarily your fit. It doesn't, like, the how matters so much less than the who.
Right.
So who do, when you do your networking, like, who are some people that, you're just like, get excited about to network, right? If you could network with these types of people all the time, I'm not saying that not everyone you network with is awesome and gets you excited to do it with, but when you leave an event or a talk or whatever it is, like even a coffee, you're like, you know what? I could do more of this.
So you're saying, who do I really like networking with?
Yeah. Or what kind of networking activities get you charged
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in several years really being there all the time. You have to be present all the time with local networking events, with the local organizations, same area as you. We're in the same South Central PA, with a Lancaster Chamber, with a Northern Lancaster Chamber, with Mantech, with the Manufacturing Association, with a High Center. I'm a sponsor of the High Center, which is a pure target market for what we do as EOS Implementers. I also participate in SCAEC, which is a networking event for people that are architects, engineer, contractors, all local. And what happens is you start getting good relationships with other people like yourself, Ross. We're in the same group. We're in Provisors together, that our target markets are similar. So we start helping each other out. And I think that's where it's a lot of fun. We start just really helping each other out. And that happens a lot for me, where I'm helping one of my clients because there's someone I've met in a networking event or gotten to know through provisors or this did. And hey, you should talk to Ross, or you should talk to this person, or you should talk to that person.
Yeah, one of the points that I'm hearing from you is you basically like to network with people that you can actually help out, right? First
Yeah.
and foremost, like if I can help you out, great. If I can't, well, I'm going to go spend my time helping those that I can because there's plenty of them. But you also had some pretty industry specific. Not that you only work with certain industries, but you have some industries that you have, quite a bit of experience in, whether that's manufacturing, construction, for whatever reason. So networking, like not just doing one industry or one association, but having a wide enough but narrow enough
That's right.
mix, right? There's a balance. Would you say
Yeah,
it's true?
that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, over half my clients are either in construction or manufacturing, and I've
Yeah.
experience in both, and I speak their language, and, I can appreciate something really good, I was at an event 2 weeks ago, Mantech hosted it, at a manufacturer in New York, and they gave us a tour of their facility, and I was blown away because I was in my previous life, I was big into lean manufacturing, and this company lived it and breathed it. You could see it, and I told them that. I said, "Of all the places I've had a tour of, this is the best example of lean manufacturing," and it just was really cool to see.
So there's some part of it though, because I'll be honest, Bill. If I was an EOSI, which I'm not, but I would not be as interested or excited or like even notice the things. So do you think that part of, your own personal brand or whatever, obviously shaped somewhat by your experience, but you're just into process and manufacturing and lean, you're into it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
do you think that like attracts like and people can sense that you're genuinely interested in that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's well, my last several clients that I've landed have all been manufacturing companies, and I speak their language, they know I get it, and I ask the right questions in the session room. I know I've felt their pain, I've lived their
Hmm.
pain, alright? So I can just, like, I get it, and then I can ask, "What about this?" or "What about that?" And it's fun.
I think that's a really interesting point. It's not just the positive, right? It's not just like, oh, this is what I'm interested in, right? Because then I would just be helping with sports teams and computer builders all the time, things like that. Whose pain can you relate to, right? Because empathy, a
Yeah.
lot of it is putting yourself in their shoes. So I think for anyone listening, one of the lessons I'm getting from Bill is if you're asking the question of, who can I best help? You could also frame that question as whose pain do I understand the most intimately?
Yeah, you could.
So one of the things you mentioned earlier in a conversation was a green flag or a good sign is when the person you're talking to is aware of their pain and that you can help. What what does it look like when they're aware of it? Does that mean they have read traction and they maybe tried to self implement, or does that just mean what are the pains that you kind of empathize with or kind of get the most? Maybe most common or most, urgent. Like hey, I can really help these people. Like what examples of pain?
They don't know where they're going. They feel like they're on a treadmill all the time. Maybe they're hurting because they don't have all the right people in the right seats. They have people issues. Maybe they need to grow faster than they're set up to grow because they have demand coming in from new business. It's a whole wide variety, but those are some of the common ones,
So some of it's vision. They don't know where they're going. Some of
right?
it's traction. They're spinning their wheels like they're literally
Correct.
not moving, but they're not. And health, which is I often equate with people. It could be financial, whatever, but
Some of it's the visionaries just like really worried and working all these hours and all these
mm.
hours and all these hours. And one of the things that happens with EOS, and I've seen it with some of my most successful clients, is I have time for my family now. I could take 2 weeks off with my family on vacation and not bring my laptop or cell phone with me, at least the office cell phone. That's what I've seen.
So one of the things that you have said to me before, Bill, along the same line of thinking, you actually told me to work less. You told me that, there's been examples that when you take not just clarity breaks, but like days where you're disconnected, that you start to see your business grow. What are some of the methods that you use, whether that's family or whatnot, to work on your business by not working, to sharpen the saw by not using it?
Well, you have to, and I do it. I schedule time when I'm doing something other than working. Maybe I take time to read. Maybe like actually this Thursday, I don't have client session Thursday and it's going to be 74 degrees. So you know what? I got 11 o'clock tea time on Thursday after I have a 9 o'clock Zoom call with a client and something else. So that 4 hours on the golf course, just relaxing, unwinding, being with my friends, just helps recharge my batteries, and that's important, especially for an entrepreneur. That you're working really hard to grow your practice, your business, whatever it is.
So scheduling and being conscious about recharge and like clarity breaks.
Correct. Yep. It's real. Clarity breaks provide confidence and clarity. That's why it's called a clarity break. But the other thing is you take time to think because you can't think. You literally can't think if you're running 100 miles an hour in your business. And most entrepreneurs are running 100 miles an hour in their business and they need to slow down, take that time to think about the business, take the time to think about, do I have the right people? What's my business going to look like 2 years from now? What's the most important people move I need to make this coming quarter? I mean, those are things they need to be thinking about all the time. But if they're running and not thinking, and thinking is part of working on the business,
Right.
that's leadership thinking. You have to set the time to think. And so that's the beauty of clarity breaks and clients, team members that do it. I see it. I see they're more decisive. And then when they make a decision, they have total confidence in the decision because they've thought about it.
Very good point. And I think going back to your genetic predisposition to really like process, sometimes one of the most important things to do is identify what not to do. And
Yeah.
sometimes what not to do is work all the time, you know?
Yep.
But it's such an interesting thing because working on your business as a leader means having to this time, space, and energy to think about your business. So one of the outputs of that, right? Like when you do your quarterlies or annuals is updating, whether it's your quarterly rocks, 90-day key initiatives, another way to say it, or your yearly, goal, like where do you want to be in a year? How has your quarterly and yearly goal setting changed over the years from the beginning to now?
Uh, I do less. I just do 2 or 3 things a quarter. That's it. And just do them
Interesting.
well. Yep.
Just do less total things, but do them better.
For me personally. And it's interesting when I see that I see the same trend with clients. We go into focus day and they'll get all these rocks, and over time they become, especially 2 years into the journey or so, we come in, we do the company rocks, they're all on the same page. It's 6 or 7 things. They know. And
Mm.
then individually they may have 3 rocks each, which is fine. And then they get them all done. And they make progress in the business.
You know, I'll speak from personal experience especially when I've been with clients or in companies running on EOS, the times that I had 7 rocks, and even if I got 6 or 7 out of 7, right? I felt like uh, half of those rocks at the end of the quarter missed the mark entirely, didn't
Yep.
actually, like, sure, they're done, but like, no,
So what, right?
so what? And the times where I've been like, we're going to do 3. 3 is the maximum. Like every single one of them had a noticeable impact. So
Yeah.
you've learned that lesson, and again, less is more, but also, like you said, do them well.
Yeah. And the goal of the job of the leadership team is to set priorities and do a good job with that. That's part of leading. Part of managing is to set priorities. And when you get disciplined enough, you can narrow down and really think through. And this is why clarity breaks are important. Really think through what the most important few things we need to do and get them done. That's when you actually start to accelerate progress.
This theme is pervasive in our conversations. Like less is more, knowing what to say no to, knowing what to,
Right.
delegate or offshore. But one of the questions I have for you is if you could give one piece of advice to an EOSI, maybe one that just started 6 months ago, they're still trying to figure it out, right? Get their feet underneath them on attracting the right clients. What kind of advice would you give them?
My advice for new EOSI is trying to figure out the type of biz dev that works for you, for your style, for what you're comfortable with, because there are different ways of doing it. You could focus on getting a whole bunch of connectors. You could focus on doing talks all the time. So you've got to figure out what works best for you and then do it and do it really well. And come and bring your authentic self.
Mm. Yeah, you don't want to get a no on the want it, whether it's for the person doing the thing or trying to convince somebody that maybe doesn't want it or unsure. Oh yeah, let me drag you around.
You
You're
don't want
saying
that.
don't do that. I guess my follow-up question on that is, would you suggest that somebody does like a type of biz dev per quarter or try a bunch at the beginning and then choose one at the next quarter? Like How did you come up to the biz dev that you like to do?
I've done just about everything. 5 proactive calls a day, talks, doing a lot of connector meetings, and I've just found a balance that works for me.
So part of it's also schedule and time management, being like,
Yeah,
hey, I have this much time to do X.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, Bill, I have one last question that is not super deep, but it is important. How can people reach you, contact,
Uh,
get in touch?
okay, so you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me at 717-495-1429, or my email address is bill.stratton@eosworldwide.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Ross. This was great.
And thank you for everyone listening. I don't run any ads on the show. I don't plan to. So if you found this conversation to be insightful, share it with a friend. That's all I ask. Till next time, be well.
Thanks, Ross.